This segment is brought to you by JigMasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to JigMasters.com and use promo code PNF20 and save 20% off your next jig order today.
Welcome to the Paddle and Fish Podcast, everybody. This is Ricketts, your host of the Mixed Bag. Today we're making history. This is the first ever catfish guest that we've ever had on the podcast. Number one right here. So we've had guys talk about musky fishing. We've had guys talk about saltwater fishing. We've had guys talk about, of course, largemouth and smallmouth bass. We've never had anybody talk about catfishing. So today, Chris Souders, everybody. If you don't know who Chris Souders is, you are absolutely sleeping under a rock. I've been following this guy for a long time. He's a great dude. He's sponsored by Sea Arc Boats, Suzuki Outboard, Marine Master Trailers, Warrior Cat Rods. If you don't know about Warrior Cat Rods, they're absolutely phenomenal. Look up Warrior Cat Rods on YouTube and watch that dude banging his rod against that tree and tell me that rod isn't made to last. They're freaking awesome. It's on YouTube right now. He's showing us his Warrior Cat rod. Now I have two of the roller rods and they're freaking awesome. I absolutely love those. Extreme bait tanks, Phytech cast nets, offshore tackle planer boards, tackle bandit, catfish clothing, demon dragons, and he has his own signature demon dragon. If you don't know what those are, check those out on YouTube as well. They produce some big fish from what I understand and what I've researched. So we're going to be talking about that a little bit more in depth and why those work so well. Smooth moose seats and monster rod holders. If you're in the catfish world and they don't know monster rod holders as well, you're sleeping under a rock. Shout out Mr. Steve Douglas. So welcome, Chris. Happy to have you on, man.
Thanks for having me, man. This is exciting. I'm happy to be number one,
Number one, man. Yeah. So the podcast is doing great. We're approaching 100,000, man. And we've never had a catfish guy on, man. And I was talking to Brian, one of our hosts, and Brian Schiller is actually the one that founded Paddle and Fin. He's one of the founders. I said, man, if I'm going to do my own podcast, if I'm going to have my own segment, I'm going to bring on some catfish dudes because we give love to everybody and not the catfish guys. I love catfishing. I've done it for a long time. I've only done it 1 year out of a kayak because then, like in this industry, when you're doing kayak fishing, if you want to get out there and you want to get known, it's all about bass fishing, right? So I kind of gave up my love for catfishing to go into the bass world, but this year I'm bringing it back. I'm flipping the script and bringing it back. So, hey, one thing we like to do though is we like to talk about how our guests got started and doing what they're doing. So I'm going to open it up, man. Just tell us who was Chris Souders before he became Mr. Catfish guy, and then how did you get to where you're at now? Because if I'm right, you even landed your own cable and network TV show. Am I right about that?
That's correct.
Awesome.
Correct.
So let's start from the beginning, man. Take us down that time zone.
I don't know if everybody wants to hear this or not, but if you can imagine this, imagine back in like the 80s, early 90s, this little chunky guy with long mullet, party in the front.
You're rocking a mullet?
In the front. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was slick, greasy. And there I was in my skin tight, hammer pants and my pool cue without no shirt on, rocking a mullet. No. That's where I started right there.
That's great, yeah. Man.
On the river banks of southern Ohio, I started catfishing actually with my father and my grandfather. Jug fishing, local channel cats, stuff like that. But then I grew up and I started racing motocross. Really loved it. Got out of fishing a little bit. Really got into motocross and raced for a lot of years. Very competitive. I was successful in that side of things as well. But, unfortunately, life happens. You get fat. Young guys come in. You're going to get beat. Your pride's going to get kicked out from underneath of you. And, you got to find somewhere else to go. And that's what happened. So I started fishing, started back. A buddy of mine's like, hey, let's go catfishing, So we decided to go catfishing. And lo and behold, we found a local club, a local tournament. And I found that competitive edge that I needed to fuel that fire again. And it picked right back up, man. And, here we are today. you know, and just being able to go back to my roots, you know, where I started with my grandfather and my dad, and now to be able to do what I do and have the success that we have and watch this thing grow is just amazing.
So this is what you do professionally now, right? No
Yeah.
day job and.
Well, no.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I wish, and maybe in some point in time, you know, that might happen. But on a day to day, I work for the railroad. You know, 40 hours a week.
You're kidding me.
Yeah. Yep.
Nice. I know two people work for the railroads, man. We one Michael Chambliss works down here in Cincinnati, and then Jordan Gibson works in Indiana and travels Cincinnati all the time working for the railroad. So
yeah, I love it. I mean, the railroad has provided me a great lifestyle, you know, for my family and I, and it allows me to do what I love to do, you know.
Absolutely. What do you do for the railroad?
So I'm a track inspector.
Oh my gosh, that is awesome. I wonder if you've ever ran across Jordan, because he sends me, like the other day, he sent me some text messages where what is the chemical, or what is the thing you guys use is it soldering tracks? Like he showed me this video. He sent me a link, man, and they lit something on fire, and there was fire that just shot down the tracks. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that stuff's pretty wild, man. I'm like, that is cool. And then we had him on the podcast, and he was talking about finding homeless people that sleep in the carts. Is that right? Are they called carts? And then some of the animals that you guys hit on the railroad. And he was talking about turkey vultures or something, how disgusting they are. But
yeah, the things you will find on the railroad is unbelievable.
I can only imagine.
Especially in some of these bigger cities.
What is the weirdest thing you found?
Ooh. I don't know if we can talk about that.
We don't know. No, this is on my segment. It's no holds barred, man. We talk about whatever we want. So
yeah. So, you know, we have a lot of, unfortunately, in this world, you know, we have a lot of homeless people.
Yeah.
And you know, one of the scariest things I've ever seen, my personal self, is our kids that wear earphones and walk down the tracks.
Yeah.
You know, thankfully, I don't drive a train. You know, I drive a truck, and I'm inspecting the tracks. So anytime I see that, you know, I try to do my part and kind of teach them, hey, stay off the tracks, because, you know, almost every year, some point in time in the year, there's kids that get killed from trains, and it's very, very unfortunate.
Yeah.
You know, so if anybody out there is watching this, if you have kids, you live around train tracks, keep them off of them, because you can't, you know, as big as a train is, especially if a little bit of snow is on, man, you can't hear them coming. And
really?
Yeah.
Never would have thought that.
It's amazing how quiet they can be, you know, as big as they are.
Wow.
Sneak right up on you. And I've snuck right up on people in my truck, and it makes a lot of noise going down the tracks. And snuck right up within 20, 30 feet of somebody before they realized I was behind them.
Oh, that's creepy, man. I couldn't imagine what that's. Is there a lot of fatalities of people walking the tracks and get hit?
Yeah.
Is that a common thing?
Yeah, kind of, yes. I mean,
yeah.
You know, you don't hear a lot about it, you know, because, you know, it stays low key, but yeah, it's a common thing. There's a lot of people that commit suicide, you know, that way. You know, unknowingly they'll drive onto the tracks, try to cross the tracks where there's not crossings, and, you know, not call nobody and get hit by the train.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Huh. Okay. That's terrible, man. You think that would be common sense, but we're also talking about generation to eat Tide Pods, right?
Yeah. And
so it is what it is.
Yeah.
What do you think about all this Corona crap going around, man? What's your thoughts on that? It's kind of crazy, right? I mean, it's weird how something like that has shaken up the world so bad.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's something that we need to take serious, you know? I mean, as fast as this stuff is spreading in China and Italy and places like that, you know, it's definitely something we need to take serious.
Yeah.
But to go out and buy every package of toilet paper there is in every Walmart around, I mean, you know, I don't understand it. Maybe you can tell me what the deal is with this toilet paper thing.
Man, listen, so I've researched it, right? And I have a funny story about the toilet paper thing here in a minute. It just happened today, but I've researched it and I found out that most of the, and this could be wrong as much as it could be right. This is just from what I found out. But most of the toilet paper that we get in the US is actually imported from China.
Yeah.
So I guess the fear is that there's now not going to be toilet paper that's going to be imported, so everybody's out buying it up, right? So me and my wife were at Walmart today, and she's looking for rubbing alcohol, and not so that she can disinfect anything. Okay, I love my wife to death, because she's on this mission to switch out the emblems on her car. So she has a Chevy Traverse, and she wants to take the stock emblems off and put black ones on. Okay. So we were out running around trying to find rubbing alcohol. Like, we went to 4 different stores. So finally we go to Walmart and we're walking around and we're in the automotive section looking for Goo Gone. Right. And I walk by and I look and I'm like, holy crap, there's toilet paper there, and it's made for RVs. So while everybody ransacked the part over at Walmart for all that toilet paper, they forgot about the RV toilet paper. So we bought all of it. It was like, I don't know, 7 bags. We bought and we were laughing the whole time. I'm like, we're just buying this just because they didn't get it. They didn't find it. Yeah. So now it's ours. You know what I mean? So it was a good laugh like that. And then we went to Staples, looking for rubbing alcohol again. We're thinking, where could we find rubbing alcohol so we can take off the adhesive and clean the car like we need to put the new emblems on. And she's like, well, what about Staples? Well, so I go into Staples. And there's this guy buying all the antibacterial wipes, just like a madman. So he gets to the register and the cashier's like, hey, man, this is a virus, right? And so the guy that was buying the antibacterial just stopped and he looked at the cashier, and there was like this uncomfortable silence, because right then and there, he knew he was kind of stupid. You know what I mean? Like, what am I buying antibacterial for something that's viral? You know what I mean? So it was comical, man. This whole thing is, I work in the banking industry, man, by profession, and I do loans and equity lines and mortgage refinances and stuff. And right now, if you're a consumer and you want any one of those products, like, it's prime time, because they are dropping rates like crazy. But normally, like, when these rate drops go to the bottom like that, I'm so busy I can't even breathe. Right now, it's like nobody's doing anything because the economy's so shaken up. So it's like, so if you guys are looking for a loan, right now is the time to do it, man, because the rates are low. But enough about all that, man. What is Slunger Cat? I see your sweatshirt on there. What's that about?
So Slunger Cat is a brand that several years ago I started the YouTube channel, and when I first started, it was just called Souders Catfishing, and it was kind of boring, and I didn't like the name, and I decided that I wanted to kind of start making something out of this and trying to do something with it. So me and one of my buddies were sitting around one day, and I was like, hey, we need to come up with a name, for this channel so I can start branding it and trying to do something with it. And we're going over names and back and forth. He says, why don't you call it Slunger Cat Outdoors? And I said, well, what is it? He said, well, I don't know. You say it all the time. I said, what do you mean I say it all the time? He said, you're always saying Slunger. And I got to thinking about it. It made me start thinking. And that was something that my grandfather said whenever I was younger. That, he would always call something like a big deer or a big fish, that's a slunger of a buck or a slunger of a fish.
Oh, and no kidding.
Unknowingly, I picked it up. And, so I was like, man, let's do this. I mean, nobody knows what it means. So I'm going to constantly be able to tell people what it means, and it means something dear to my heart.
Yeah.
By bringing a little piece of my grandfather into it. And whenever I started getting my website built and had a lady that was helping me brand stuff, she said, well, what's it mean? I said, I don't know. And she looked it up, and it's an Appalachian noun for a fish or animal of unusual size.
No way.
Yep.
Wow.
And I know it's hard to believe, but I had no flipping idea what it meant. I didn't even know that I used it, in the sense, and if it wouldn't have been for my buddy Harley, I probably would have never come up with the name.
That's crazy. So your grandfather using that word, and you probably just thought he was a made up word, just like we make up words all the time. So actually meant, that's crazy, man. Good deal. So how was that? I mean, how did you build your brand? You started on YouTube, and I imagine back when you started on, it probably wasn't that minimum. Was it 1,000 or 4,000 now before you start getting paid?
So whenever I started, there wasn't no minimums.
Yeah.
My channel is not real big now. I think I just hit 10,000 on YouTube, but you know, I really wanted it for people that were trying to follow me through the national trails. Whenever I was fishing a lot of tournaments, people were trying to want ways to follow me and get information, and that's what I originally started it for.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just kept with that, you know, to be able to share information, you know, through that channel.
Yeah. Well, it's nice. I know YouTube is my go-to now. So if I want to know how to do anything, it's YouTube first. I research it. If I'm going to buy something, it's YouTube first. So, you know, now that I'm getting back into the catfish game, it's get on there, you know, early spring catfish. And of course, your video comes up and it's talking about transitions to April. And, you know, the flatheads are going to start waking up when you start hitting water temps 45, 50 degrees. You know, they're going to start. So run through that, man. So talk to me like I'm a beginner catfisherman. Okay. And I'm saying, hey, Chris, we're coming into April. What should I be doing? What bait should I be throwing? What size? Should I be, you know, bumping? Should I be trolling? What should I do?
Yeah, I mean, now, you know, it depends a lot on where you're at in the country. You know, so whenever I try to break that down, I break that down individually.
You're in Ohio, right?
Yeah. For our conversation and our kind of talk right now, you know, I'm going to talk about the Ohio River, Canal River area. You know, if we're talking about flatheads, you know, this is the time to start really thinking about things, really start getting geared up for the spring. That water temperature's at 50 degrees right now. The fish are starting to wake up. You know, just like you and I, whenever I wake up first thing in the morning, I need coffee. You know, I need something to get me going. Well, those fish, as that water temperature warms up, you know, from the smaller fish and then more so to the bigger fish, that need to get up and get moving and start to think about pre-spawn and feeding and moving into, you know, what their natural habitat is, that gets more dominant, you know. So right now they're stacked up still. They're still holed up kind of together, staying warm in their wintering holes, kind of deeper water. But as the day gets warmer, they'll move up shallow, you know, back and forth through the day. And then as that water temperature continues to raise up, and it goes up into that close to that 60-degree range and then into that 60 degrees, that's that perfect number. And that is whenever we want to get out there, we want to fish as much as we possibly can. That's usually like the end of April, 1st of May, depending on where you're at. But that is like the perfect time to be on the Ohio River, Canal River, you know, small rivers like there's a river that comes into Cincinnati.
The
Licking River. And, you know, that's another good, you know, those little rivers like that are good flathead rivers, Scioto River, that people don't really, you know a whole lot about. And I know a few guys that fish out of kayaks and fish those small rivers and have a lot of success. Yeah. And they don't put it out there, you know, because it's like you can't. Yeah. Yeah. They don't want a lot of people to know, but it's very good. But gizzard shad right now is like the best bait you could possibly use. Yeah. In this area.
Small chunks.
Yeah. You know, right now it just kind of varies. But as the spring goes on, you know, and you really start getting those flatheads. Man, don't worry. It doesn't really matter what size bait you throw.
Oh, okay. I mean,
you know, a 40-pound fish, he's hungry. He don't care if it's an M&M or a steak. Yeah. He's going to come after it, you know.
Nice.
And that's another thing, too. You know, if you don't have a lot of bait, you know, you can throw littler pieces of bait, you know, 2 or 3 finger piece, you know, wide pieces of bait and still catch big fish, you know. Yeah. Or if you want to just primarily catch big fish, throw, you know, big baits, you know, good 8, 10, 12-inch pieces of baits. You know, don't worry about how big it is.
8 or 10, 12-inch, that big?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, this, you know, so yesterday, you and I was talking now. Yeah, yesterday I was throwing baits that were, you know, 12-inch gizzard shad, and I would fillet one side off and then just clip the tail off and throw the whole bait.
So, okay, let's talk about that, man, because if it's one thing, well, there's a few things talking about Ohio catfishing, right? And just to kind of give what my understanding of the history is, like it used to be really good, but then commercial fishing came in and decimated the Ohio River, especially in the Cincinnati area.
Absolutely.
I mean, just destroyed it. And now it's on the rebound. But a lot of catfish anglers, we don't like to post those because we don't want to expose our big fish back to the public, you know? So the point of not really advertising that is that actually for the conservation of these big catfish that are coming back up, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're in agreement with the commercial catfish. I mean, it's really hurt, and I think it's starting to hurt Kentucky and Tennessee now. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. All the way down through Kentucky. Kentucky is, it was basically the wild, wild west. They let them come in, do whatever they wanted to do, however they wanted to do it. No laws, no regulations, and they killed it. It was horrible. I've seen it firsthand. What would happen to those fish, but you mentioned something about how people don't like to share information because they're worried about what's going to happen to those fisheries because of the information they're sharing. On the other hand, I use it as a learning tool. There's going to be people out there that you cannot change their mind. They don't care about the fishery, and you can't change their mind. But there's a lot of people out there that just don't know. They think that they don't think that they can go and catch a good fish in the Ohio River. And I want them to see that, and I want them to reach out to me, and I want the opportunity to teach them, to give them just that little bit of confidence, man, to get out there on that river and get away from, pay lake style fishing.
So conservation through education.
Yeah. I mean, you take a big risk. It is a big risk, but if I can sway a handful of folks to, take that, get away from that, and come to the river or a lake, around them, man, it's worth every bit of it.
So a lot of our listeners, and they're all around the world. And what we mean specifically by commercial fishermen, we're not talking about people who come and catch the fish to take home and sell to markets. We're specifically talking about pay lakes. If you don't know what a pay lake is, it's just a pond that people go and pay money to fish out of. But the catfish and all the fish that are inside these, quote unquote ponds, right? They're man-made ponds, are pretty much stolen from our river systems, like all around here. And it's really bad for the fish. Most of the fish don't make it once they're transferred in there. And, you can get on exposed pay lakes on Facebook, and you can get on YouTube and research all that. We won't get into that whole spiel because that's just a wormhole we don't want to go down right now. But just educate yourself on that. Now, this is also coming from a guy that when I first started catfishing 20 years ago, it was on a catch fish out of river. What are you talking about? Like for me, it's like you had to go pay $20 and get in 2 pots and go hit the pay lake. That's what we did. It's Friday night. Man, I got nothing else to do. Let's go grab our poles. We're going to go do an overnight trip at Easy Pay Lake over there in Blanchester. You know what I mean? So that's how I first started catfishing. And it was through education, somebody like teaching me about that. And when I found out the effects of pay lakes and what actually was going on, it was when I got into the kayak game. Because naturally, when I started kayaking or kayak fishing, I wanted to kayak catfish, right? And one of my buddies that took me out here locally taught me about the effects of commercial fishermen and how the pay lakes are decimating our numbers. He shout out to Josh Mollis, man. If you ever hear this, it's because of him that I was educated with all this stuff. So just it's just crazy, man. It's crazy. And it's still it's still a thing because they're still running trout lines. They're still stealing the fish and yeah, it's this whole debacle. But man, education through conservation through education, that's huge. I mean, I love that aspect. So I was kind of hush hush. I never really wanted to show my fish, but I like that, man. I think that you're onto something.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those people are good people, that they just need a little help, a little help finding the fish and how to catch them. That's all they need.
So if you have buddies that fish out of a kayak, have you ever done it? Have you ever catfished out of one?
No. I want to do it so bad.
Yeah.
I could just imagine what it's like hooking up to a 30 or 40 pound fish in a kayak. I just got this picture of holding onto the rod and that fish is dragging me like Jaws, dragging the boat in the movie around.
Absolutely.
Wherever he wants it.
It's kayak fishing's a blast, man. One of our guys, at the Cincinnati Fishing Expo that we both worked and we ran there. One of my seminars, I had a picture of one of our local anglers here, Kurt Smith, hooked into a 50-pound blue cat on bass gear. So nice. Kurt during the summer, he does bass fishing, right? He's sponsored and he goes around these tournaments and he does all that. In the wintertime, he does hybrid striper fishing. That's his passion. And so he just hooked, it was like 6 inches of snow on the ground, fishing a flooded Ohio River, and nailed his 50-pound blue. And, he's holding it up. And there was like a news crew there, just happened to film the flooding of the Ohio River down here in my town. And they caught him on camera landing that catfish. It was just this monster blue cat. So, I mean, doing everything from a kayak, it can be a little bit challenging, and you got to have some patience, but the reward is so awesome. Right. The patience is you don't have this huge platform to kind of stand up and move around. You're doing everything without the use of your legs if you're not standing up. Right. So it can get kind of tricky and it can get kind of hairy, and you're fishing flooded waters on a small plastic boat. I mean, but it's fun, dude. I wouldn't change it. Now, you saw my rig, the Blue Sky. I mean, that thing, I've already got it rigged out for catfishing. I need to get some of those monster rod holders, because I have the Yak Attack ones, which are like plastic bass rod holders, So I need to get some of those monster rod holders and put that on there. But it's ready. I mean, I got the 9-inch sonar. I got an anchor system in that thing, and I'm gonna buy a bait bucket too, bait tank. I found one that was, I don't know how many gallon, maybe 15 gallon, but it's gonna fit perfect on the back of that thing. So I'll be able to circulate the shad and keep those alive too and stuff. But that brings me to the question before we started talking about pay laking and stuff. You were talking about bait. Dude, that is like one of the hardest things for people to find is bait. Now everybody can find bluegill. Yeah. And, bluegill are kind of a dime a dozen, but we're talking about big gizzard shad and we're talking about skipjack. The skipjack, especially in Ohio, man, nobody can ever find them. And the people do find them, they don't say nothing. You know what I mean? They don't talk about it. And it could be, even myself, I'm like, I've been kayak fishing for 6 years. I have never even snagged one on accident. So tell us about bait, man. Like, where is, if don't give up your bait honey hole. I'm not asking you to do that, but just for guys looking for bait, where are some good general areas that they could look for?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, to be able to pick the right guy for the right one to spill his guts, you pick the right one. Cause I'm an open book, man. I'll tell anybody everything. But
oh man.
But no, when it comes to gizzard shad, there are a lot of people that struggle with it. And there's a couple things that go into it. One, you really, really need to know how to throw a cast net. Two, you need to be able to throw it for long periods of time. Don't get a net that is over exceeds what your ability is. Yeah. Meaning, I hear a lot of people say you got to have a 1.5 pound per foot, 2 pound per foot style net, and you really don't. And what that is how many pounds of lead per foot that net is. Okay. The heavier the style or the idea is, the faster it will sink. Right.
Right.
But my thought process is, if I can use a bigger diameter net, like say a 10 or 12 foot net, in Kentucky. Now, Ohio, you're only allowed a 5.5 foot net. So that really, size limitations for you. But in Kentucky, you can use a bigger net. So use the biggest net you possibly can use at like a 1 pound per foot. And that will save your arm, save your shoulder, when you're throwing it. Because you're going to have to throw it a lot until you learn how to do it, find out where they're at. You're going to be throwing that thing for hours and hours and hours.
Wow.
And, but that's part of it. But, backwaters, trying to think of marinas, any place that's, especially when the river comes up and floods, backwaters and marinas are hot spots for gizzard shad. Another thing to remember is in the springtime, those shad, right now they got eggs in them already.
Okay.
They're already thinking about coming up and spawning. So they're going to try to find that warmer water. Creeks that, their natural want is to swim upriver, right?
Oh, I didn't know that.
So a creek, that is coming out, backwater, they're going to want to kind of try to go up that anyway. They're going to head towards locking dams. Any place that's going to hinder them from going upriver is going to be a high concentration. Locking dams like Markland Dam.
That's a good one. It's just over an hour away. Yeah.
Yeah, that is Meldal Dam. Both of those dams are really, really good for skipjack.
Yeah,
I mean,
see, I fished
by
there
the
and I've
hundreds.
never had any luck.
Yeah, so you know, um, Meldal Dam about the middle of May or middle of April into all the way through May, you can go there and catch hundreds of them a day.
Wow. Off the bank?
Yeah, yeah, off the bank.
And what are you throwing when you're trying to catch them? Just a different color twisters?
Let's see.
Because you're
Yeah,
allowed 3 hooks in Ohio, I believe it
yeah,
is. Like,
yeah. So you're allowed 3 hooks in Ohio, and what I like to do is I make my own style of sabiki rigs.
okay.
And what it is they're called shiny heinies at Walmart.
Yeah.
They're just basically they're a crappie jig. Crappie Magnet makes some other ones that are really, really good as well. They're just a crappie, 1/16, 1/8 ounce, jig, hair jig or curly tail, pink and white, white on white, white and black are all good colors. And
Wow.
just
Okay.
tie them in a line like a speaky,
Yeah.
three,
Yep.
and just kind of throw them out there. You'll find these current seams as it's coming down the river. In the spring at the lock of dams, you'll find real thick current seams coming off walls and stuff, and just work it in that current seam, and you'll see them come up and dart it, and it is not uncommon to catch 2, 3 at a time when they're real hot.
Yeah. So that's only a few weeks away before they start turning on then.
Oh yeah. For people that don't mind traveling a little bit, Kentucky and Barkley dams down in Kentucky,
Yeah.
those are already hitting. They've already
really.
started firing up. Yeah.
Oh man, now see, I'm just thinking about driving down in Tennessee, like taking a vacation day, spending the day down there throwing for them. So, yeah, man, I didn't know that. I see Terry Rogers always posting up big pictures of Skip, and I'm like, this freaking guy. As soon as he slips up and posts something, a backdrop or something, I'm gonna be all over that. I was thinking.
Don't tell him I told you where to go.
Yeah, no doubt, man. No, he's always posting big bait. So the thing I didn't know about gizzard shad, I have my honey holes around here for gizzard shad, and one real well one, which I have no problem talking about, is East Fork Lake. Like if you go to East Fork Lake in June or July, it gets so bad. They move up so shallow because that water gets so hot that when you're kayaking, you stick your paddle in, you're literally flipping up probably 10 or 30 or 40 per paddle stroke. Like it is absolutely insane, man. I've seen it. I've seen probably 200 to 300,000 shad in one area, to where like when you throw out your net, you threw most of them back because it was too much, I've got 4 or 5 bags that are probably a year old down in the freezer right now. Just for shad. So shad is like something I've always been able to really easily catch. And my buddy, Captain Ryan Davis, he has a charter out of East Fork Lake, does hybrid striper and crappie fishing and stuff like that. He taught me how to look for them. So, on calm flat water, you'll just see a little flicker on the top of the water. And you talked about the same thing in one of your YouTube videos, how to out there. Now, to the untrained eye, you would never think that that's a school of shad. And so when I first started learning how to do that, look for that, now I spot them all the time on my kayak, because on the kayak, you're almost at water level, and so you really see them. So, but 12 inch, I've never hooked on to a 12-inch gizzard shad, man. That's a big one, man.
Yeah. Don't hesitate.
Yeah.
I don't know how big they are at East Fork Lake.
They're not that big that I've seen.
But, a good live bait for me is, 7, 8, 9 inches, live gizzard shad. And for me, the bigger the gizzard shad, the better. It just seems like they got more oil, they got more blood, more meat, more meat on them, and it's just more flavor. The smaller the gizzard shad, seems like the less, consistency I get with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say that I can take a big gizzard shad and cut it down to small pieces, but I can't take a small gizzard shad and make it big.
Exactly.
And if people, something else too, if people will let the little ones go and not, and that's something else that you'll learn as people start catching more and more bait, to use a bigger mesh net whenever they're casting them, and that'll let the small ones come out and catch just what you need.
I don't know what size my net is, and now you got me double thinking it. I've had it and I've thrown it for a long time. I didn't know it was a 5.5 foot requirement for Ohio, and that's max, right?
Yeah, no. So let's see, it's radius and diameter.
Yeah, explain that. I think that's a good thing when we're talking about cast nets. Yeah.
Yeah. So one is going to be, and I may have this backwards. Now, since you're putting me on the spot, but 5 foot radius is like a 10-foot diameter.
Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you can hold it up and it's 5 foot tall, that's going to go out to 5 foot or 10 foot, when it's completely stretched out.
Yeah. Okay. That's the one I have then, because my buddy Ryan, he's the one that told me to get that one. So cool. He's the one that taught me how to throw cast net too, man. And it gets you wet when you throw it. I think you got to be ready to be wet, slimy. So do you put the lead in your mouth, or do you do it the other way?
No, dude. I used to throw in sewer discharges and stuff whenever I was, and I used to put the lead in my mouth, and I ended up getting like this big old nasty sore. And I come home and I thought my wife was going to kill me because she thought I was out doing something I wasn't supposed to.
Oh, no.
Right then and there. I got to learn a different technique,
Oh, that's crazy. What was that show? It's on Netflix, Blackwater. Ugh.
Oh,
I don't know if you've seen that yet, man. That was crazy.
See, that's right there where I work.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Yeah, I work just downriver. I work in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, which is just downriver from where that plant is.
That's crazy.
Yeah, our line actually, feeds that plant, and that's where they get their chemicals from. Is our railroad.
Wow, that's nuts. If you guys haven't seen that, that is freaking awesome documentary. But it'll make you throw out all your frying pans.
Yes.
Yeah, that's crazy. So why is skipjack like the #1 catfish bait? Is it because it's so big and oily? I mean, that's when everybody talks about catfish, and they specifically are on a craze to find skipjack, and that's like the best. So what is the reason for that?
So I don't think it's the best. Okay. I'm a person that loves gizzard shad.
Yeah.
Now each bait has its best time and place depending on the species you want to go after. So, and I'll kind of break that down a little bit. So if we're talking about blue cats in the wintertime, I gizzard shad. I like big cuts of gizzard shad.
Big cuts.
Yeah, big cuts of gizzard shad in the wintertime for blue cats. Huh. That's what we was trying to catch this weekend. And if I want a 50-pound blue cat this time of year, I'm throwing a 12-inch piece of bait, 8-inch piece of bait. I'm not going to hesitate to do that.
Wow.
But as spring comes around, and I start seeing people catching skipjack, then I know those skipjack are on the move, and I'm going to start switching things over. I'm going to start adding skipjack into the mix. And then as the spring moves on, gizzard shad will kind of move to the wayside, and it'll be mainly skipjack. And then as the water temperature warms up even more, it'll go from skipjack to carp. And
carp?
Asian carp, common carp, your common grass carp, and then like a quail fin. I don't know if you know what a quail fin carp is. So, and everybody's seen one. If they've been on the river, that they've tried to cast net anything, you've seen one. But it looks just a regular carp, but it's got a long, thin, like almost like a hair on its fin, on its back. And that's what's called a quailback carp. So those in the hot summertime, the dog days of summer, carp, moon eye, skipjack, grass carp, stuff like that are excellent baits.
I've never fished with carp. I've never even heard of it. That's the first for me.
Yeah, and that's something I think that goes back to that question that she was asking. Why do I think that carp or skipjack are supposed to be like the best bait for blue cats? And I think it's a mindset that people have been driven into, that they have to use skipjack to catch blue cats, and that's not the case. Skipjack has its time and place, but depending on the time and things throughout the year will depend on what baits might be better than skipjack.
No kidding. What about, where's bluegill fall in that? Because a lot of guys like to fish live bluegill because they're so durable.
Yeah, so if you're a flathead fisherman, channel cats love bluegill, flatheads love bluegill. One thing to remember with bluegill, even with blue cats, is they are a predator fish to a catfish. And I know that sounds weird, but they eat a lot of the eggs, a lot of the larvae, things like that. Yeah. So a catfish may not hit it because it wants to eat it, but it will hit it, especially in the springtime, because it knows it's pissed off at it, and it knows that, you know, it's going to try to eat its eggs, and it's going to crush it and kill it. And it may not.
I never knew that.
Yeah. And this is,
Huh.
I guess this is, yeah, I told you, man, I'm like an open book.
I'm telling you, bro. See, now
Yeah.
I'm all in now, man.
So I'm gonna give this tip, and this is a good one. This is a good one. I mean, these guys better listen up to this one. Okay, this is like pouring out the 5-gallon bucket here. So if you're a flathead fisherman and you're fishing, you know, in the spring and kind of at, you know, into their spawning time, and you're using live bluegill, use live bluegill at this time. Okay, hook them in the back, not in the nose, but in the back, where they can swim around and fight really hard. If there's a flathead in the area, he may not hit it because he wants to eat it. He's going to hit it because he's going to crush it. And if you miss him, don't get discouraged. Hook another bluegill up and throw it right back out there. He will kill them bluegill every time that you throw it there. One of the two things are going to happen. You're either going to tick him off and he's going to move out, or you're going to stick a hook in him. One of the two. And I've actually had to throw up to 3 bluegills in one spot before I actually got a hook in.
That's crazy. What size hook are we using?
7/0 Diachis.
Diachis. Okay.
Yeah.
So not Gamakatsu, but Diachi. And you going circle hook, or are you just going the traditional?
No, I'm a circle hook guy.
Are you? You like those?
Yeah.
Snell it? You snell it?
Yep. I snell them. And the reason I like Diachi is it's kind of a double action hook. It's not specifically a true circle hook. You know, a true circle hook, the point will actually come back and almost turn down. You know, to where a double action, it's kind of just, it just bends back.
Yeah.
You know, it's a circle hook, but you can still get away. You know, once again, I put a lot of people on my boat, taking fishing, teaching them things, and they're new. They're beginners, right? You know, they're going to make mistakes. They're going to grab that rod and jerk it. And whenever they do it, they can still get away with it and not lose a fish every single time. Where if you do that with a circle hook, you're going to lose that fish.
No kidding.
It's kind of benefits to that.
Okay. I'll have to look into that. And that's something you can get at Bass Pro and any of these places around here, or is it just online only?
Well, I'm sure, I don't know if you can get them at Cabela's or Bass Pros around here or not, but TTI Blakemore is the website that I send them all to. You can buy them super cheap. I mean, you can get like a 100-pack for $65, which when it comes to good quality hooks, that's a fair price.
Yeah, absolutely. What size weights are you throwing?
Oh man, I like
depending
big
on
weights.
Current.
Yeah, but I'm normally throwing 6, 8, 10 ounces weights.
Wow.
You know? Now, I love going different places and fishing. You know, like James River, Mississippi River, places like that. You know, on the James River, it's not uncommon to throw a 14 or 16 ounce weight.
That's insane.
Yeah, and then you go to the Mississippi, and you're drifting. Heck, you may be drifting with 24, 30 ounces of weight.
That's insane. I use like 3, man. I'm doing it wrong.
Yeah.
So what you were making, I see that you got little some containers back there full of lead, man. Do you make your own stuff?
Yeah. I lose so much lead, so I think that's what's wrong with me. I sit out here and melt it so much. It's burning me.
It's getting to you, huh? That's crazy. So do you use like old tire weights?
No. So what I'll do is I will, I'll ask around. You know, I'm like the guy on the corner, begging for money. Like if contractors, people like that, if you see them working on a hospital, go talk to them, because when they get that lead out of those x-ray rooms, that is the purest lead you can get. And it's hard to get your hands on, but man, that's some of the best lead. It's real soft. You can fold it up, because in those x-ray rooms, it's just big sheets in the walls.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Nothing but lead. But now tire weights are good, but they're nasty. You got a lot of steel and a lot of stuff that's inside of them. And you got to be careful with it. I was melting some lead down here in the garage one day, and we got a block from a salvage yard, and whoever melted it down into that block didn't get it hot enough, and there was an air pocket in the center of it. But when the outside of that got hot enough, it blew up, and my dad was with me. And thank the Lord above, man, but it blew up, and it hit his whole chest, missed his face, and then got got his
Oh
back.
my gosh.
Yeah. So did not hurt him at all. Scared us to death. But the only place that he didn't have cover, it completely missed it. You know. And we learned there that whenever we get big chunks, to take them outside and melt them down with a torch, and then bring them in.
Wow. Yeah, I just buy my stuff, man. I don't know how to make it. I don't have all that stuff. So I'm that sucker at spending ungodly amount of money on weights, you know. I get on eBay and you can find some pretty good deals on eBay, I guess. But man, I've never used that heavy. I'm doing it all wrong, man. I'm figuring out I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So that's crazy. What water do you like to fish the most?
So I love West Virginia. So I fish Southern Ohio, the High River, but I'm really falling in love with the West Virginia borders of the High River.
Yeah.
So West Virginia does a phenomenal job. Back in 2006, 2007, I want to think, they started stocking blue cats, and they completely protect their waters. So
Really? I didn't know that.
yeah, where Ohio and West Virginia border each other, there is no commercial fishing at all, none. And to even go farther, a couple years ago, we had some guys that was coming in, and they found a loophole in the trout line stuff. So, and they found a loophole in how many fish you was allowed to keep with the number of people you was allowed to keep on the boat, right? Well, instantly West Virginia got a hold and heard that, and they closed all the loopholes in their laws. So you're only allowed like one blue cat over a certain length, one flat head over a certain length. You're only allowed so many flat heads in the boat, no matter how many people you got in the boat.
Oh, that's amazing.
So many hooks. I mean, they done a phenomenal job closing those those loopholes. So I spend a lot of time in that body of water, and the fish are getting phenomenally big.
Really?
In a short 12-year period, we're seeing 50-pound fish.
No kidding. There's a guy I know lives out there, Justin Vaught. I think it's how you say his last name. I have him on Facebook. He gets some monster fish out there in West Virginia, man.
He's a good friend of mine.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Yeah, tattoo guy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He
does
an
some
excellent
wicked looking tattoos.
Yeah, I heard he was really great, man. I see he posts his work and stuff on Facebook a lot. So he loves to fish out of a kayak, man.
Yeah. He used to. Then there was a little shop out there in West Virginia that sold kayaks, and man, he got into it big time there for a little bit.
Yeah.
And he got some really nice fish out of that kayak he was in.
Oh yeah, there's another one buddy of mine owns out there, and I got a friend that's sponsored in West Virginia. They sell a bunch of stuff, and I'm trying to think where that is. It out of Hurricane?
Is it West Virginia Outdoors?
No, it's like I'll have to look it up on Facebook, man. Andrew Hitchcock is the guy's name that owns it. I'll have to remember it, but he's a good dude out there. We sell a lot of kayaks to people out in West Virginia. They'll drive here and buy kayaks from us in Ohio all the time. Yeah. So it's only like a 4.5 hour trip, I think, to get there, if that.
Yeah, it's not that far.
Yeah.
For me, and Cincinnati's only 2.5 hours.
Oh, from you?
Yeah.
Oh, that ain't bad. See, now that's something I'm willing to drive. I'd leave at 3, 4 a.m., drive over there, hit the water all day, and come home. I had no problem with that. Elevation Sports, that's what it's called.
I got you.
Yeah, so they sell a bunch of kayaks out there, and then the James River, I heard it's like the best smallmouth river around in America. So
I fish on the lower end of the James for catfishing. Yeah. But I've gotten to work on the James River up in the mountains.
Yeah.
And that is some of the most beautiful water I've ever seen.
Man, I can only imagine. I'm getting jealous. Now, everybody, when it comes to catfishing, they automatically think that Tennessee's the Mecca. And I think, like, if you search kayak catfishing specifically, man, you're going to see another Justin down there that just smacks everybody because he's always catching fish. So do you think Tennessee is like the Mecca, or do you think it's more like South Carolina and North Carolina, or do you think it's now West Virginia?
Well, that's a hard question. Tennessee is good. Tennessee is phenomenally good. But I think it's depending on your style of fishing. So the James River out in Virginia is phenomenal. The Mississippi River is probably one of my favorite bodies of water to fish. It's really fast current. You're bumping. it's just a different style of fishing. It's challenging, and I think that's something that kind of drives people away from it.
Mm-hmm.
But Tennessee is something that doesn't matter if you're in a boat, a bank, a kayak. That's a place you can go and fish and have success.
Yeah, with big stripers out there too.
Big stripers, big catfish.
Yeah.
Lots of guides down through there. If you're somebody that likes to take a guide and try to learn a body of water.
Yeah.
Before you go down there, that kind of thing.
Which is kind of crazy. I heard Tennessee waters are some of the most polluted too, though.
They have some of the toughest regulations. Like you're not allowed to eat none of the fish. So
yeah, that's weird. You wouldn't think that a highly polluted bodies of water would produce that big a fish, but that's kind of crazy, man.
Yeah.
Hey, you just said something that sparked up a thought, man. I meant to ask you about this. So you said bumping. So there's a lot of different styles of catfish, and I think a lot of people may just be under the pressure that you just hook a big old bait and throw it out there and put your feet up and drink a beer and that's it. So tell us about the different styles of fishing, man. Like what method would you do per time of year? If something's not working for you, how do you switch this up? So walk us through all that.
Yeah. So, this time of year, I'm anchor fishing. I just, we just got, an anchor set up. This is just a regular anchor set up with a 3-way. Sinker slide, regular 200-pound barrel swivel, about 24 inches of leader line. Got a demon dragon in the middle. Big reel, big line, 50-pound mono, 80-pound leader line. That's just a regular basic anchor fishing style setup. For a lot of people, and that can kind of be from a bank setup, a kayak, from a boat. Current style setup. But now as things progress into the summer and into the warmer months, you'll want to change that up. Now, if you're a flathead fisherman, the odds are you're gonna anchor primarily, most generally, all the time, as long as there's current. But now if you're a blue cat fisherman, as that water temperature reaches 55 degrees, you want to start moving baits. Drifting. Drifting is just where you're going with the current. And you got your line suspended, or, a lot of people are starting to learn how to drift with planer boards backwards.
Yeah.
Where you can get a big spread on things. And then bumping, bumping is, you need, for me to bump, I need about 2.5 mile-an-hour current or more for me to feel like I'm going to be effective bumping. Anything under that, I feel like I can dead stick or drift with planer boards and be successful for blue cats.
So bumping, what exactly are you doing, man? You're just bouncing your weight, or are you bouncing the bait off the bottom and structure?
So what you're doing is, basically like I'm sitting here in a boat, and I'm drifting with the current back, down the river, and I'm going to slow my boat down, and the speed is not like a definite, but I always start with half of whatever the current's moving. So if the current is moving 3 mile an hour, I slow my boat down with my trolling motor to 1.5. And then what I'll do is I'll set, I'll adjust my weight. I'll put a cannonball style weight on, and I'll let line out the back of the boat until it hits the bottom. And then I'll just start picking it up and setting it down. And I'll just keep letting line out as it goes back behind the boat. And then you'll finally get it back there to a sweet spot where you'll pick it up and it'll just set down every time. And about every third time you pick it up and set it down, you'll let out just a few inches of line. And that's kind of what I call the sweet spot, And that's, that could be about 100, 200 foot behind the boat.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So what does that cause? A reaction strike? What's the purpose of that?
Well, blue cats are, they got more action to them. They're more aggressive, I guess you could say. And I don't want to use that term aggressive, but kind of, they hunt more, So instead of going down into the structure and waiting on something to come to me like a flathead would, or waiting until night to kind of go up in the shallow and hunt for something, a blue cat will stay out there in the current. And as you're bumping it down through there, you're slowing it down and you're letting that scent go down through there. So that blue cat is kind of smelling it and he's kind of coming out there looking for it. And then as you're bumping it down through there, he's already moved in front of that scent line and he just grabs that bait. And what you're doing is you're just setting yourself up for more percentage. You're moving it down through that ledge or down through that body of water and the percentage of putting that bait in front of more fish in a shorter amount of time.
Yeah. Okay. So what's the purpose of a demon dragon? And you held it up there again and it was rattling. For us, for people in the bass world, it looks like a big spook.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And and this is something I've really thought about. And I've got some friends that are bass fishermen, but I haven't really and maybe you should try this. But these were just basically what would have been called the Sierra spook. 1 Knox were the original. You guys, bass fishermen use them today, and we still got the third place for treble hook right there. But now, since from the original ones, these have been molded to a different way, and there's actually 3 different sounds inside of them, 3 different rattles. And so, whenever they was first originally designed, it was designed for dragon, And I had one of my buddies, Scott Manning, was the one that originally started them, and I want to tell the story because a lot of people, this is a big controversial thing. Do they work? They're expensive. Why do I want to spend the money on them? I don't want to believe what you say, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So for years, every time Scott would see me, he'd say, "Hey man, I want you to try these out. I'll give them to you. I just want you to try them out." I'm like, "Nah, Scott, I'm good. I don't bass fish.
Yeah.
Why in the world would I want to rattle and a float? And so 2 years of that went by, and finally he come and he just threw me a pack of them, and it was the what is called the 3.0s, and he said just try them. So I was out fishing and wasn't catching squat. I was actually pre-fishing for a tournament, and I wasn't catching nothing. Low current. I was flathead fishing, and I broke one off. And I like to keep my word, in some way, shape, or form. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, I open up my box and I see him laying there. And I remember telling Scott that I would try him.
Yeah.
And I thought, what better time to try him than now? The fish ain't biting, I could tell him I tried them, tell him they didn't work, and, make him happy, right? So I tied one on, threw it out there, and I'll be daggone if I didn't catch a fish on it. And I thought, well, that's just a fluke, a mistake, Well, the next day I had the tournament. I cut it off. I didn't want nobody seeing I was using them, because I was actually ashamed to even say that I had caught a fish. No. And so a few weeks went by and I was back out fishing again. Same situation, low current, flathead fishing. I broke one off and I thought, well, what the heck? I'll try it again. And I caught another one. And I'm like, now wait a second. Something's got to give here. Is this a fluke or is there something to it? So I started trying it like half and half. And what I found out was real quick that they did not shy away from it. It did not spook them. They didn't care, right? But when the bite was really, really tough, I could put a live piece of bait, like a live bluegill or a live gizzard shad, on that rattle and throw it out there, and it would sit there and it would rattle so much that the way I look at it, those fish are getting so ticked off because that thing is just sitting there making so much noise that they come up there just to kill it because they're pissed off at it.
No kidding.
And that is my 100% honest truth to that. That I honestly believe that is why they like them. And I don't think that they like them. I think it's one of those things where, I always tell people in my seminars, I give it to a kid and I say, rattle this beside of your father and see how long it takes it before it ends up across the room.
It wouldn't take me long.
And it clicks. It hits that, and that guy's like, yeah, I understand. I see what you're meaning. But so basically they were designed to float your bait up because they are float, but they make a lot of noise too. So it's designed, catfish. Another thing is people think that catfish are just old stink bait, the nastiest stuff you can put out there. That's what they want, right?
Right.
But it's not. I mean, as we continue to learn more and more about these fish, we're continuing to learn that they're more complex than a lot of other fish. In particular, like bass. they're just as complex on how many, like how many taste buds a flathead has on it. As a fully grown flathead, they have something like 200,000 taste buds on it.
I never knew that.
So, there's a lot to how, they feed in a muddy river compared to what another fish may feed in a real crystal clear lake.
Yeah.
So that fish has to use all of its senses and not just once. And I try to, we're trying to figure out how to take advantage of that either way. And this is one of those things where we can take advantage of that.
Huh. That's interesting, man. And so the other thing a lot of people use, I think is it the Carolina rig where they have that big float that keeps your bait off the bottom too, right? Is that the right rig?
Yeah. So that's basically let's see here.
Or a Santee Cooper rig. Is that what it is?
Yeah. So basically, this is a dragging rig, a Santee rig. As you can see, I got a fast clip, but this still the same sinker slide, same barrel swivel. But instead of being an 18 to 24 inch, 30 inch leader line, you're going to have about 3 foot. And then, this is going to be more towards the hook.
Yeah.
You're only going to have about 6 inches here so that bait can float up more into the water column.
And that helps with a big piece of bait?
Yeah. Well, as far as how big the bait is and how much that will float, weight-wise, I can't tell you honestly, how much that's going to float. But I know specifically this float here, with a big skipjack head or a big shad head, something like that, it's going to float it up. And a lot of that's going to depend on how fast you're moving, how fast the current is, things like that.
Yeah. So you use mono and not braid to mono leader or braid to fluorocarbon. Why do you use mono to mono now? It seems like everybody goes to braid.
Yeah. So me personally, I fish a lot of structure, a lot of cover. I always tell people, especially if you're going to flathead fish, the nastier stuff you can get in, the better, for flathead. And whenever you hook one, they want to go right back into where they was at, and you got to pull them. A lot of times you got to pull them out of that structure. And, mono gives you that little bit of abrasion resistance to where braid doesn't.
Yeah.
Whenever you get them out of that structure and you're really fighting that fish, that mono is going to stretch a little bit, because you're going to make mistakes. And you're going to try to overpower it. You're going to make those mistakes. And that mono is going to help you minimize those mistakes by stretching a little bit.
Yeah. And what size mono do you like to roll with? What's your leader and what's your main line?
So my main line is 50 pound and my leader line is 80.
Wow. That big, huh?
Yeah. A big, and what got me to use that big of a leader line is, going to these bigger places with big blue cats. The blue cats have such a rough tooth pad. And anybody that's grab a hold of a blue cat by the mouth,
for sure,
and they crunch down on them and it starts rolling. They can bust a 50-pound leader line, nothing flat. So I bumped it up to 80. I know some people that use 100.
That's crazy. I have 65-pound braid on my reels on my Pin Warfare, and then I have 40-pound mono as a leader. I'm gonna have to switch that up now.
Yeah, I mean, you can. I mean, I know a lot of people that use braid, and there's one instance that I use braid over mono, and that's bumping, just so I can feel everything.
Yeah.
We're using smaller reels, a smaller style of rod, so you got to have that line capacity, and you got to be able to feel everything as you're bumping down through there.
Yeah.
But now, as far as everything else goes, I think that's a personal preference. I feel confident in that. And if somebody feels confident in braid and they have their setup set right to where if that fish takes off, it's going to pull drag nice and smooth, that style of thing, that's for them. But if you're fishing structure, I would highly recommend, you switch over to mono.
And do you have different rods for different applications, or do you use the same style rod, which I'm guessing is probably a heavy action rod, right?
Well, I'm a kind of a different style person, For blue cats, I use a heavy action rod, but for flatheads, I want something that's basically a pool noodle. I want something that's got a real soft tip, real fast action, a medium heavy action rod, and that's a flathead does not get the justice that they need. They will grab a hold of a piece of bait, and if they go to back up with that, and feel any tension at all, they'll spit it out. So, you know, having that nice soft tip to let them come up, they'll grab it, and then they'll turn. And when they turn, it's too late. You know, that circle hook is already starting back where it needs to be.
Yeah.
And, you know, but you've got to be able to let them turn.
So I have 2 medium heavy Warrior Cat roller rods, and I use those in my kayak a lot, especially when I'm drift fishing, because I love them, because those rollers are meant to take all the resistance off of the pole, you know, so that, you know, if you're flathead or even blue cats, man, they just take it and they can't feel it until it's too late. Kind of like you said, man, you know, that line rolls off there, and they're real flimsy, but they have real nice backbones on them. So those 2 are my favorite rods, man. And then I have 2 I think I have this 2 Warrior Cat ones, and then I have a Shatter Cat rod, and then I bought one of the YouTube guys, Muddy River catfishing rods.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Which you know, I gotta say, I love his freaking reels, man. Like his reel seats and his handles, that rubber material he used on there, and all metal reel seats. I'm like, okay, those are pretty nice, but yeah, they're good rods, man. I love my Warrior Cats though. Those are the ones I use the most. So
yeah, Chris Flores, he makes a pretty good rod.
Yeah. Yeah, which, you know, he's a good dude too, man. So if anybody ever wants to look up him, he's what, New Mexico? Is that where he's at?
Yep.
He told me, I talked to him at the Catfish conference a couple of years back, and he said he took his whole savings and put them in those rods, and it's like he's going to make it or not, you know, and I think he's pretty successful now, isn't he? Selling them?
Yeah, he's doing pretty good. And man, he fishes some really skinny water. I mean,
yeah, he does.
ditches.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. It's ditches here. You're right, man. And he catches some nice fish, man.
Yes, he does.
Yeah. So what's your personal best?
So personal best blue cat is 72.
Wow.
And personal best flathead's 56.
My personal best flathead's 44, and I think my personal best blue cat's in the 20s probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the flathead, personal best flathead, come from West Virginia waters and Tennessee waters for blue cat.
Wow, that's amazing. So when you guys tournament fish, do you go by pound or length?
Pound.
Pounds.
Well, pound and length, because you know most tournaments we're at, you're only allowed 2 over a certain length, and then so many under a certain length. So some tournaments are 3 fish limit, some tournaments are 5 fish limit.
Oh,
so
okay.
you know, depending on where you're at, you're allowed maybe 2 blue cats over 34 inches, and then the rest of them have to be under 34 inches.
Oh, no kidding.
So,
oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and a lot of times those 3 fish that are under are more important than the 2 overs.
Huh.
Because,
so I've never, usually in the tournament world, from on this end, on the bass ends, the bigger the better, period. You know, 5 fish limit. You want them as big as possible, as long as possible, not weight wise, because they go by length. But a lot of the kayak tournaments now, they always go by length as well, not pounds. So there's always controversy in tournaments. Whenever you're talking about competitive fishing and money gets involved, there's always some kind of controversy. We had one recently in the kayak world where a bass fisherman was accused of cheating because he was able to bend his measuring device in this, you know, quote unquote, trying to gain extra length doing it, right? That's what the accusations were. Whether he really did that is still under debate. But now they have all metal measuring devices, so to prevent that from happening. So how do you? I'm trying to ask the right question here. So you guys have to use a certain net, and is that net something that you have to get checked out before the competition starts?
No, so we have to keep those fish alive.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, you know, I have a 100-gallon live well in my boat. And, you know, I have pure oxygen, oxygenators, bubblers, stuff like that inside my live well to, you know, circulate the water, flush the water out. And as we put those fish in there, we have to take them to the weigh-in at a certain time, weigh all our fish in, and they have to be alive.
Wow.
And then they, you know, you have to measure them too. So if you're only allowed having 2 over 34 inches, if you put them on your board and you have any question at all, you better know what your board reads compared to what their board is going to read, because you go off of their board. So a lot of times I will pre-check my board with the tournament director's board to make sure everything lines up correctly.
Oh, no kidding. What kind of board do you use?
It's just, be honest with you, I don't know the name of it. It's just a aluminum board that I believe I bought it at Cabela's.
Huh.
You know, and it's got, it's got a taller front end on it, but it goes out to like, I want to think 40 inches.
I'm gonna have to get you hooked up with Duke Westcamp of Ketch Products Inc. So he makes all the bump boards now. Well, not all of them, but the majority of the aluminum bump boards for competitive bass fishing. But he's expanded into muskie and now catfishing. So he's making one that's, I think it's $90, but it extends out to like 50 inches or something.
Heck
So
yeah.
I'll have to put you guys in touch with each other, man. He's a great dude, man. Duke's a really good dude. I actually have one of his boards back here behind me that he made for the Jackson kayak team. So, how are the pots in catfish tournament, man? Is there pretty good payouts in those?
Yeah, so it's growing. So whenever I first started this, 10, 12 years ago, you really didn't do it to think you was going to win money, right? I mean, it was just like a bunch of good guys out fishing a tournament and just having fun. But now, we're getting 50, 60, $1,000 payouts. And
wow, that much, huh?
Yeah, it is definitely not uncommon to see a 10 or 12 or $15,000 payout, and there's as much as 30, 40, $50,000 payouts coming.
Wow, that's amazing. And we've had up to 100,000 in the kayak world. Yeah. So the NC, like last year, I think it was like 75 and some change. The year before that was 100,000. We have a guy here locally, won 45,000. The kayak competition aspect is unfreaking real how much money you can win. And on their tournament trail, you can win some coin. Like first place, 10,000 prizes, like $10,000 first place is not uncommon. So, and that's just on a general tournament trail. Like it is so much money. And now Ron, I'm going to butcher his last name, Hamerhaven or something like that. He's doing a lot of kayaking, trying to get a kayak catfish trail going on too. And he's working with Chad Hoover of KBF to try to get that established. So I don't know, man. I think we're going to switch gears and do more of the catfishing this year, just because that was my number one passion growing up was catfishing, and I lost that. And now I'm going to get back into it. But, I got this kayak thing down pat. I've been doing it for so long, and now I have the perfect rig, and I could even put an outboard on my rig if I wanted to, and up to like 3 horsepower, nothing huge, of course, but most importantly, I got to get you on it. So when this weather warms up, bro, I mean, I can't put you on there now. Wouldn't be safe, but with the cold weather, unless you have the gear. But when it warms up, man, we start getting that May, June, and the water temps get up there. We're going to have to hit it. And I'll come to you. We'll fish your water, but we'll do it in a kayak and knock it out of the park.
May is like, I'm telling you, Ray Charles can catch a flathead around here in May.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. And the boat's on me. I'll bring you the boats, man. Like, I'll put you on my blue sky and let you sit comfortable. So, hey,
I ain't going to lie. I'll be nervous.
Yeah.
I'll be nervous.
Oh, it's not that. Well, the blue sky is 13, almost 14 feet long and 4 feet wide. That one's pretty awesome. Like if you're going to transition from a bass boat to a kayak, that is definitely the one you want to go to. Because, I mean, the seat spins 360 degrees. You don't even have to get out of your seat to fish. You just spin your seat around in circles, and it's stupid awesome, man. Like it's awesome. I'll send you some pictures when I get finished getting rigged up. Initially, I was going to go out tomorrow and go catfishing, but it's been raining all day, and I think the Ohio River is going to be completely blown out, so I probably won't go. But tell us about the TV show, man. I mean, how did you get into the cable show, and what channel and what network is it on?
Yeah, so man, last year, actually a year and a half ago now, I was running the tournament trail really, really hard, and I come home one day. And I got a little girl, man, and at the time she was like 4 years old, getting ready to turn 5. And she looked at me, and I was getting ready to leave to go out of town. And she said, "Daddy, when are you going to be home?" And man, I tell you what, there's not a feeling in the world like getting kicked in your gut by your 4-year-old because you haven't been home for weeks on end because you've been running a national tournament trail. And and I thought to myself, you know what? Hey, I don't have nothing to prove. I've been blessed enough to win 2 national championships, and what else do I have to prove to anybody?
Right.
And I decided to take a step back from the national tournament stuff. And lo and behold, like I was just fishing, concentrating on the YouTube channel, just having fun. And this guy calls me and he's like, "Hey, have you ever thought about doing a TV show?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't,
Right.
I mean, and I thought he was kidding, I thought, I told Jenny about it, and I really thought this guy was full of crap,
Yeah.
and if he ends up watching this, I'm sorry, but but a month went by and he calls me back and he says, "Hey, this is Preston, he's like, I want to get together, go out to lunch and start talking about getting this stuff moving." I said, "What are you talking about?" I had actually forgot about, him asking me that question. And he said, "The TV show." I said, "You're serious, ain't you?" He said, "Yeah. What do you mean?" I said, "No, you're serious about wanting to do a TV show about catfishing."
Yeah.
He said, "Yeah." He said, "Yes, we're absolutely, And so we met, we ate dinner, and he's like, "Man, here's the idea. We want to take, catfishing is growing. It is the fastest growing sport fish, and it's not even technically a sport fish."
Right. Which blows my mind.
Yeah. And it's the fastest growing, thing right now. And we want to, make a nationally televised TV show about it. And we're going to call it Catfish Crazy." And I'm like, "Holy smokes, this is real."
Awesome.
And so they picked it up. Last year we went out and we filmed 8 shows last year, all over the country. One of my things with it was that I wanted it to be informational. I didn't want to put into somebody's mind that they had to go out there and catch a 50-pound fish to have a good time.
Right.
I wanted to be able to go all throughout the country and teach people how to catch fish, from if they want to put in a frying pan or if they want to catch and chase trophy fish. Regulations, conservation, and just have a good time. That was part of it all. And they're like, "That sounds wonderful," So we started filming last year. It starts May 4th of this year, here just in a few weeks.
No kidding. That's awesome.
Yeah, it'll be on the Pursuit channel. The actual time is not set yet, but for anybody that watches the Pursuit channel, there's a show called Brush Pile Fishing.
Yeah, everybody knows Brush Pile. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the same company that produces that is the company that picked me up.
NKT, right?
Yep, NKT Productions.
Yeah. Man, we're gonna have to get you on a kayak on that next time you film, bro. That would be awesome, man.
Yeah. So and that is something that we have talked about. As this thing grows. So we're starting into season 2 now. We're supposed to be starting to film here soon. We're going to be doing a full season this year, which is 13 episodes. And then as this thing grows, I want to do some bank fishing shows. I want to do kayak shows, small river shows, big river shows. I want to touch on all the base, all of it, because there's been a study out there that shows that there's like 8 million people that chase catfish. That is a astronomical.
That's insane. I never would have thought that.
Yeah, but the number that we see of like tournament anglers and quote unquote professional anglers is so minute. The big picture are those guys that were just like me, that are out there fishing with their grandfather and their dad. Just put a few channel cats in a frying pan, and that's the people I want to. I want to help them too.
Right, absolutely. That'd be awesome, man. If you want to film the kayaking thing, you just let me know. I'll bring 5 or 6 boats, and we'll make that happen for sure. That'd be awesome, man.
Now, Joe, the film guy, he may not like me too much whenever he's got to stand up on a kayak all day, but he'll be all right.
Yeah. Well, the film crew, man, we can we could definitely make that happen. They could film out of the Blue Sky, which is like a real solid platform. They could put tripods and feel real comfortable doing that. And you and I could be more traditional kayaks, to make that happen. But yeah, keep me posted on that. We'll spin that for sure.
Now let me ask you a question. Have you ever taken that on the Scioto River or someplace like that? And how would those react? How would those kayaks be on that, like a body of water like that?
Traditional kayaks, no problem at all. Now the blue sky I've had on all kinds of water. There's a picture if you go to on my Instagram page. Um, I have this me and two other guys standing on this blue sky out on the Little Miami River, which was really shallow. It's under 5 feet, and we were going up current. And it did just fine. And then I take it out on the big Ohio River all the time. It cuts through the water really, really, really nice. It's wide and big, so it kind of turns wide and big, but it's got a big old rudder and it kicks up some pretty good speed. And you can put a electric trolling motor on there and like a Torpedo, for instance, and get 5, 6, 7 miles an hour, on that. So, and all the traditional kayaks were great. Like I feel I've taken as small as a 10-foot kayak on the Ohio River, and I've taken as big as 13 and a half, and I felt comfortable every single time. I like a bigger kayak on bigger water. Like a smaller one, obviously, for smaller water, because I like to tuck in and stuff. One of my favorite rivers is the Little Miami River, and it's typically really shallow up where I fish. It deepens up as it dumps into the Ohio River. But, I mean, there's guys that take their Hobie Pro Anglers, which are decent-sized boats, but then there's also guys that take – a lot smaller boats like an Outback or something even smaller than that. And they get out there in flooded water. And you want to talk about extreme kayak anglers, these guys are pretty nuts. I mean, it's flooded, iced over. They're breaking ice in the water to get to their spot, and they're hybrid striper fishing, you know what I mean? So yeah, what we'll do, man, is I don't know, whenever you do that catfish season, if it's something you would consider, what I would like to do is to get you on and get you comfortable with one off camera a weekend or a day or something like that, so that when you're on camera, you're not a total noob while you're doing it, right?
Don't look like a fish out of water, huh?
Exactly. I mean, the gear, man, when I catfish out of mine, I keep it real simple. And that's kind of how I like it when I'm generally kayak fishing. Is I don't like a lot of crap and clutter, and it drives me insane, dude. I cannot stand it. Other guys that competitive fish, you should see their kayaks, man. Like, I don't know how they do it, but they have everything around their feet, and it drives me insane. I'm like, everything's got to have its place on my boat. But I like a clean flat platform, and I only take like a plain old tackle box, probably this big, a bait bucket, and those two roller cat rods from Warrior Cat that I use. And that's all I roll with, man. An anchor system and a fish finder. It's very simple, and I make that work every single time, because you don't need a lot when the fishing's right. You don't need a lot. So I'll go hit East Fork and I'll fish where the Little Miami River dumps into it. And because it's like, if they're going to feed, they're going to start going up the mouth. They're going to go transition from the lake up the mouth of that river every single time. And they're going to get all the bait in between there. So it's like a pinch point,
Yep.
And there's some guys pulling out some pretty big blues out of the East Fork too. It's starting to turn into a honey hole. So
nice.
Yeah, man. So it's
nice.
It's
see, I really wasn't aware that East Fork even had blue cats in it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's guys pulling out 20 and 30s all the time there, and they're starting to get big. Yeah. It's starting to produce some good fish. Another guy I'm going to have on the podcast, Denny Ransom. You've probably heard of Denny, right?
Oh,
yeah. So another huge kayak angler, sponsored by Whisker Seekers and stuff. I really like how he does it, man, because he gets in that. He was in a sit inside Jackson Kayak Kilroy, which is a phenomenal riverboat. And he will get right up against that structure, and he calls it going to war. He'll drop down and just wait for that fish to hit, because when it hits harder than hell, Yeah. And then he fights it right there in structure. And I mean, that is freaking awesome. That dude's a hell of a fisherman. He's going to be my next guest. He's awesome. And then I'd like to get Spencer off of River Certified, like to get him on here too. All those guys, man. Steve Douglas. We're gonna shine some light on the catfish world for sure, man. Especially when it comes to kayak catfishing, man. I mean, that's gonna blow up. It's gonna blow up.
I hope it does, because man, I want a kayak. I've been wanting a kayak for like, I would say 4 solid years now. And I just haven't, I don't know. It's like the unknown for me of not knowing which one to buy, because with anything,
you're
going to sink a lot of money.
Brother.
Yeah.
I just sat up in my chair. You're all mine now.
That's right. And those are questions that I don't know, and I want to learn. And I think that need to learn and want to learn is what drives everything. But yeah, I've been wanting to do that for so long, and just the unknown of what to buy is kind of what kept me from doing it.
And I think when people are starting out, the number one thing they want is stability, right?
Yeah.
So that's like huge. Everybody wants the most stable kayak they can because there's a sense of insecurity. You're going from a big
Yeah.
boat to something small, man, and so you're going to research stability and by none, there's nothing more stable than the Blue Sky. And this is not my pitch because I work for that company directly. This is just I never even knew how stable it was until I bought one and got in it. And it was like, holy crap, there's nothing to beat this. Then after that, you go into like a Jackson Kayak Big Rig, Hobie Pro Angler 14 type realm. You know what I mean? Both of them are big, wide, stable kayaks, different types of drive systems. Um, some brand loyalists will say the Hobie is more stable. Others will say the Jackson's more stable, but both of them are actually really, really nice kayaks. And then you can outfit them with electric motors, Minn Kota, spot locks, or torpedoes. And if you want to pedal drive or paddle, and they all get pretty heavy. You're generally looking between when you're getting to the big boats, you're looking between 120 to 140 pounds and up, right? And that's without gear, but they support up to like 500 pounds. So for
That's
you,
good.
man, yeah, well, if you're going to carry a lot of gear and stuff, I have a big rig at the shop that I know I can get you in. It's a Jackson Kayak Big Rig. It's the pedal drive. It's a big boat. It's 120 pounds, but it's got the new Jackson drive in it. You would feel really confident in that boat. I have no doubt about that. So I can borrow that because this is shop demo. So I can bring that. I can bring my Blue Sky, and we can meet up anywhere you want. And it could be a small lake, and I'll let you get the feel for it, and you can practice around. We can throw a couple rods, and hell, we can even go bait fishing. You could stand up, like if you stood up on that Blue Sky and threw a cast net, you would be amazed. You really would love it. Now there's a new product, which I can't talk about it yet because I haven't had it. I haven't signed. I'm getting ready to sign an NDA with Jackson, so I got to watch what I say and what I can't say. But this one hasn't been released yet, and I can't tell you what it is on camera. We might be able to have a conversation off camera, but it's awesome, right? It's going to be really cool. And once you see something like that, maybe something else you want to go towards, right? But cost is also another thing, man. The cost of these kayaks can get pretty up there, Yeah. So it's something that you don't, if you're into the sport heavily, you can't cheap out on it. You can't cheap out on your kayak. So like the Jackson's going to run between $3,000 and $4,000. The Blue Sky is going to be $4,000, but what you get for the money is absolutely insane. Now they have a recreational version of the Blue Sky that's like in the $2,000 range, which is the same boat minus a front platform and like two hatches. Like there's some other stuff that's different, but you could get by with something like that. But the used market's also really good. But man, I mean, if you saved up between $3,000 and $4,000 and you'd be one of the best platforms ever hit the market, and it's just, you can beat them up and they're awesome. They're seriously awesome.
And to be honest with you, with what you just said, as far as the tournament trail goes, the ability you have to win, versus what you spend. I mean, that's pretty daggone good.
It's a good investment, right? If you're talking about, like, I don't know how much Sea Arc boats are, but I imagine 50, 60,000.
Yeah.
Plus insurance, plus upkeep, storage. If you have
plus
to pay
another 10, you spend 40, 50, 60,000 per boat, and then you have to outfit it.
Imagine being able to spend $4,000 and take it apart and store it in the corner of your garage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I posted, did you see that Facebook picture?
Yeah.
That's almost a 14-foot long and 4 feet wide. And it took me 15 minutes to pop the pontoons off, take the seat off, fold it, and tuck it away so I could fit my four-wheeler in there.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
Yeah. And the thing holds 500 pounds. And it goes, I can get 4.5 mile an hour pedal out of it. So, and that's without losing my breath. And I can put a 3.5 horsepower or 3 horsepower outboard gas engine on it, or I can outfit it with, a trolling motor, whatever I want. And the Jacksons are freaking awesome, man. And I work for the company. I'm the Midwest team manager for them, man. And I'm hopefully do some R&D stuff for them soon too. And it's I love my kayaks. I love that brand because it's sure, like every brand you represent, you stand behind because they're quality brands and you put your name. Same here, man. I would never pimp myself out for a company that I didn't believe in. It
That's
just
right.
wouldn't make any sense. So we're going to make this kayak thing happen. I mean, it's only a matter of time. So,
Oh yeah. And the market's there.
yeah.
There's, there are 8 million people out there chasing catfish.
I found out this year, here's kind of a fail on my part. I had this plan. I took my son and I was like, hey, we're going to go hit this catfish conference this year. Cause he really likes Luke or the outdoor boys, right? He loves Luke and his kids. So my son Pierce wanted to go meet Luke, and I was like, cool, we'll go down on Sunday, man. No problem. And we'll go and hit the Indianapolis Travel Sport and Boat Show. I didn't know they switched it this year. So instead of Saturday, Sunday, it was Friday. So I drove an hour and a half down to Louisville, pulled in there. I was like, yeah, I'm here for the Catfish Company. He goes, man, they're packing up today. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, show ended yesterday.
Man.
Like, no. Hour and a half down to Louisville, and then an hour and a half over to Indianapolis after that. In my Ram 1500 of all things, so it wasn't cheap on gas. So
yeah,
that's funny, man. I was cracking up. I was pissed I missed that one, but next year I'll hit it. So
and something for people that are listening, next year it's not going to be. They're talking about it not just being catfish, so it's all to be catfish and crappie next year. So
no
you'll be able
good.
to get so you'll be able to get both things.
Yeah. Well, I heard that there wasn't any kayaks down there this year, and I'm like, that's a problem.
Yes.
So next year I need to get with Steve Douglas, and I talked to him a while back about kayaking and stuff. I'm like, man, I need some rod holders, but I need them for my kayak. And he kind of blew me off. And it's kind of a normal reaction because not a lot of people take kayaks that serious because they don't understand how big that industry is. Like, it is absolutely huge. And when you're talking about tournaments where people win $100,000, that's huge. That's up there with the glitter boat tournaments. You know what I mean? Yes. So, and I was like, man, I was like, he just doesn't get like how important it is to have stuff that fits on kayaks. So I would love to revisit that conversation and rig my kayak out with his stuff. Now that I'm getting back into catfishing and stuff, but I need to get a hold of him and talk to him about putting some kayaks in there, man. Even if I got to bring down a whole arsenal in Jackson's to set up and let people, especially that blue sky, because catfishermen, some of them catfish guys are some big boys, man. They're big boys.
Yeah.
And if they sit on that thing and they can get it out in the water for $4,000 and not have to pay $40,000 more, it may be something they would like, so.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm 240 pounds. If I can throw a 10-foot cast net off of that, that's, you're as good as sold.
Yeah, absolutely. It, and with this one, with the blue sky, man, you really don't have to have your sea legs. I mean, when it comes to stability, every kayak manufacturer has a big wide kayak and say, man, this is the most stable on the market. You can stand up just fine. And that may be right. You may be able to pop up out of your seat just fine and stand there. But the moment you take a step, that shit's going to change. You know what I mean? So you got to get your sea legs. I mean, it's just like walking on a boat and anything else. Once you get your sea legs and you feel the secondary stability of the kayak and you learn it, you get really comfortable and you can get silly on it, right? With a blue sky, it takes 90% of that away. So, but you still got to get comfortable with having a set of pedals in your legs, being able to throw, and you got to get, just comfortable being on the boat as it is. One thing I do, man, is if I'm going to throw a cast net off of it, I take my whole seat platform off and I'll take my drive off and I'll stand up on it and use it as this big, almost like a floating dock. Because I don't have to go very far to catch my bait. I know exactly where it's at and I can go locate it. But if I got to locate it, obviously I'll use my seat, my rudder, and everything else. But last year when I was throwing out for bait, it was so thick. I mean, you could have taken just a handled net and scooped it out of the water at East Fork. It was ridiculous. So, yeah, we could talk about that for hours and hours and hours, man. I already taken up an hour and a half of your time, man. But I'm so excited to have our first catfish guy on here, man. I'm sure you got stuff to do. So we can wrap it up. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about, man?
No, just, man, I want to thank you for having me. It's been a good time.
My pleasure, man. I know I ran up to you at the Cincinnati Travel Sports and Boat Show, kind of like a little fangirl. You came over and actually the boat you were looking at when you first came here, it was on the stands in the middle of our booth. That was the big rig. That's the one I was talking about. And it had an electric motor on there, which gives you about 5 horsepower or 5 miles an hour. So that would be the one, that exact boat with the pedal drive is what you would be using if we met up.
I got you.
Yeah, so it's a big, but yeah, man, I was, oh, it's Chris Souders, man. Holy shit. Yeah, I watch him on YouTube all the time. Here he is standing right in front of me. So it was pretty cool, man. And then we worked all these shows and stuff. I'm glad we got our shows in before that virus hit, though.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, if you do not, so at the Catfish Conference, it's probably a good thing you wasn't there.
Yeah.
Because there was a bunch of us that got sick.
Oh, no.
But I'm telling you what, if you have never heard of fire cider, man, you need to look it up and make you a batch. That stuff.
Fire cider. Huh?
Yes, it tastes like, I'm talking, it tastes like a horse's rear end. But son, it'll kick a cold, it'll kick a flu. I tell you right now, I don't think that I could get sick. And I believe that I will not catch the coronavirus. I may die tomorrow from this.
Yeah.
But as long as I'm drinking that fire cider every day, I don't think I'll get sick.
Oh, now you got me intrigued. Now I'm going to have to look it up and see what the heck that's about. So
yeah, I'm telling you, man, that stuff. Now it takes a lot to choke it down.
Yeah.
But it's now if you like vinegar, you're in good shape.
Ooh.
But I don't like vinegar, so it takes a lot for me to choke it down.
I used to drink some apple cider vinegar diluted in water. I changed the way I eat often, so I ate ketogenic for almost 2 years and jumped off of that and got fat again. And now I started eating what they call carnivore, which is just meat basically. And I've been doing that. Today's day 37 and I feel great, and it really like boosts your immune system. And they say people that eat, these kind of ways like ketogenic or carnivore or stuff like that and don't eat all the box crap and all the obsessive amounts of carbohydrates, like your immune system's through the roof. So I'm not one to get sick, and I kind of don't think I'll get it either, knock on wood, but if I do, I'm going to drink that stuff, I guess, and see what that's about.
Man, I got 3 fresh jars in the cabinet cooking right now.
3 of them, huh?
Yeah, because when you make it, it takes like 4 to 6 weeks for it to kind of, brew,
Yeah.
And, because what it is, it's a bunch of roots and like peppers and onions and different things. And you pour in apple cider vinegar on top of it. And it, that apple cider vinegar breaks everything down. And it's just a huge boost to your body.
No kidding. I'm going to have to check that out, man. That's good info. Well, man, I appreciate it. It's a pleasure, brother. It's a pleasure. Hey, welcome to the podcast, man. And we'll this is going to air tomorrow morning, and I'll post up everything and tag you in it, and feel free to share it out and everything, man.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me. I hope you enjoyed, man. I hope somebody on here learned something, and for anybody listening, and if you got any questions about catfishing, and hit me up, social media. Oh yeah.
I got your phone number now, man. Now you're in trouble.
That's right.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you coming on, man. I think this was definitely one of the best episodes that I've recorded so far. Lots of information here, and I'm still. We'll talk more at another time about where you're finding these 12-inch gizzard chat, because I've never in my life have ever hooked into one of those. So cool, man. As of now, I appreciate it, guys. We're gonna go ahead and wrap up here. It's a pleasure, Chris. Thanks for coming on, man. Good chatting with you.
Thanks for having me.
Go check out the website, guys, paddle_n_fin.com. Also check out YouTube, youtube.com/paddleandfin. If you got a question, comment, want to hear from a future guest, feel free to email us at paddle_n_fin@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media. We're doing giveaways, announcements, things like that at Facebook and Instagram at paddleandfin. Shout out to our show supporters: Rocktown Adventures, Loveland Canoe and Kayak, Hammered Lures, Fish Mob Lures, TRC Covers, Ketch Products. Go to catchproducts.com. You can put the Paddle and Fin logo right on your catch board. Don't forget to go over and pick up your JigMasters Jigs. Use promo code PNF20 and save 20% today. Don't forget to rate and review the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to. It helps grow the audience, helps others find our podcast. So please drop a 5-star rating in on the podcast platform you're listening on. Don't forget about the recycled plastics program, you guys. Take your used plastic baits, put them in an envelope, mail them to the address in the show notes. Our man Eric Richards at Hammered Lures melts those down, makes new baits, and donates them to various chapters of Heroes on the Water.